This is quite interesting. I'll tell you a very quick story. When I was 19, I think I had a sales job, and I had to drive down to a sales meeting to try and sell some advertising. I had a really old shitty car. So I'm driving this car, pull up next to me at the lights in a fucking Tuesday morning, 10 o'clock, music blasting, drop top Aston Martin with a Swedish number plate. Some fucking dude about 30 with a hot blonde next to him. And I remember looking at him thinking, who the fuck is this guy? Like, here I am with my broken car on my way to do a shit job. I can't afford to fix my car. This guy is from Sweden, and he's just driven to England, and he's got a Swedish plate, and he's got this hot bitch, and he's got music pumping, and he's on his way to have lunch. I want to be like that guy. And I think this every single time. I live in Romania now. Now I drive around Romania in my Lamborghini or my Aston Martin, and I always have a girl with me, and people look at me, and people are giving me the exact same look I gave that guy. People look at me like, who is this guy from England who just drove here from England? I'm standing at the bus stop about to go to work, and this guy's got a $250,000 car and a hot bitch on his way to have lunch with music blaring. And the reason I managed to go full circle is those small events in my life, seeing someone else with more success than me, ingrained in my brain. And to a lot of people, it doesn't ingrain in their brain. I was walking to school. If I was walking to college with my friends, I used to have to walk. I went to a college on the other side of town, so I had to walk 4.6, I think it was, fucking miles to college. It was a fucking nightmare. And one day a Ferrari burnt past us. And I remember saying to the group, I was only 18, I said, doesn't it annoy you that this guy has a fucking 300,000 pound car and we'll probably never have one? And they're like, oh yeah, it's only a car. I'm like, no, you don't understand. There is a life hack. There's something happening where people are living lives that other people don't get to live. There's something happening. There's something going on. I want to have a 300,000 pound car. I want it. And no one else wanted it. These little events didn't ingrain in their brain. A Ferrari driving past me bothered me. And it bothered me to my core, to the point where I decided I would do anything it takes to have one. This is the reason I have 6 or 7 supercars and other people don't. You need to be perspicacious. You need to understand that in this world, there's a whole bunch of people doing amazing shit that you are not doing. And that needs to piss you off. Because if it pisses you off, you become motivated all of a sudden. I was the only one who was pissed off when that Aston Martin was next to me and I had my sales job. I was the only one who was pissed off when I saw that Ferrari drive past. Other people were not annoyed by it. And they're not annoyed by it. They're not driven to beat it. Anger is a fantastic force. It's perfectly fine for you to look around at your life, look at the house you live in, look at the car you drive, and get pissed off and go, you know what, I want a fucking nicer house and I want a faster car. There's nothing wrong if you take that anger and you direct it in the correct direction. Right now you're watching it and you look around you and you don't own the home you're in, get pissed off. If there ain't a Ferrari on your drive, get pissed off. You need to sit there and realize, whoa. I have a few years of consciousness, and even less than that, I have a few short years as a young man. Because age will damage you. I mean, if you're a millionaire in your 60s, it's not nearly as good as being a millionaire at my age. I became a millionaire at 28. So you need to realize you've got a few short years as a young man. You're fucking wasting them. Get angry. Because getting angry, forced, directed anger is an extremely powerful force.
You have no idea how many people will live their entire lives in silent frustration because they couldn't summon the courage to chase the dream burning inside their chest. They sit in rooms they hate, surrounded by people who don't inspire them, wearing a mask that hides everything they truly are. That's not life. That's slow suicide. That's a prison with invisible walls. You were not created to blend in. You were not born to be background noise in your own story. You've been handed this miracle, this one shot at existence, and you're wasting it waiting for a moment that doesn't exist. The right time is a fairy tale told by cowards to make themselves feel better about standing still. You're waiting for clarity, for motivation, for a sign from the universe. Let me tell you something raw. No one is coming. The world owes you nothing. Life doesn't reward the most talented, it rewards the most relentless. The ones who act despite fear, not the ones who let fear become their excuse. Every time you hesitate, every time you say, maybe tomorrow, you lose a piece of your fire. You'll look in the mirror one day and see a stranger, a version of yourself that never truly lived, just existed. I don't say this to discourage you. I say this because you need to feel the pressure. You need to understand the stakes. You're gambling with something more valuable than money or time. You're gambling with your destiny. And most people lose because they never realize they're even playing. They drift. One day becomes a week becomes a month becomes a year. Before they know it, they've built a life completely disconnected from the vision they once had. That childhood fire, that ambition that used to keep them awake at night, replaced by routine, watered down by comfort, numbed by distraction. But you, if you're hearing this, you still have a shot. You still have time to wake up. You still have the ability to fight for the future you know is possible. The difference between those who make it and those who don't isn't luck or intelligence or connections. It's the decision to stop tolerating mediocrity, to walk into the unknown with nothing but belief in yourself. That's where greatness is forged, not in comfort, not in safety, but in chaos, in challenge, in the moments that break most people. You want to know what separates winners? They don't fold under pressure, they rise because of it. That's the mindset. That's how you escape the cage. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've watched ordinary people do extraordinary things because they refused to quit. I've seen men go from broke, depressed, and directionless to powerful, sharp, and dangerous because they made a decision. One moment where they said, enough, I'm not living like this anymore. And from that moment on, they moved like their life depended on it. They stopped asking for permission. They stopped explaining themselves to people who didn't believe in them. They stopped playing the victim and started acting like warriors. And slowly, painfully, they built a life worth waking up for. Not perfect, not without struggle, but real, fulfilled. So if you feel fear right now, good. Everything you want lives on the other side of that fear. The love, the success, the impact, the freedom. You think courage feels good? No, it feels terrifying. But it's the only path worth walking. And if you don't take that path, someone else will. Someone else with less talent, but more hunger. You've got breath in your lungs. You've got time on the clock. That means you've still got a shot. So stop waiting, stop hesitating, stop lying to yourself that this version of life is good enough. You weren't born for average. You weren't designed to shrink. You're meant to rise, to evolve, to become the person you were always capable of being. But that version of you isn't handed to you. It has to be built. It has to be earned. When no one's coming to save you, when every fake friend disappears and all the distractions fade, what's left is you. And you find out exactly who you are when the lights are off and the excuses are gone. That's where you discover your real strength. Not when everything's going your way, but when everything's going against you and you still refuse to fold. Most people avoid that moment their entire lives. They run from discomfort, chase quick highs, seek safety like it's some kind of victory. But comfort is a slow poison. I remember walking to a job I hated, every step feeling like a death sentence. I looked around and saw a sea of lifeless faces, people who gave up on their dreams decades ago but kept pretending they were okay. They talk about the weekend like it was salvation. They gossip about celebrities, cling to the lottery, chase cheap dopamine to distract themselves from the reality they built. I knew I had more in me, and I wasn't going to wait for permission to become who I needed to be. So I made a decision. The kind that changes your DNA. I decided I would rather bleed chasing greatness than suffocate living average. I started waking up before the sun. I cut off every voice that fed doubt into my mind. I trained like a madman. I studied, I executed, I failed. Then I got up and did it again. And while others were talking, I was moving. While they were looking for motivation, I was creating results. And slowly the gap widened. What was once just a dream became my standard. What used to scare me became my playground. What once looked impossible became normal. And not because I'm special, but because I was willing to pay the price. People see the end result and they think it's magic. They think success just happens. No, it's war. It's waking up tired and still putting in the work. It's sacrificing what's easy for what's necessary. It's missing out on temporary pleasure to build permanent power. It's saying no when everyone else is saying yes to mediocrity. And when I say I've suffered for this, I mean it. I've walked alone through storms of uncertainty with nothing but belief in my spine. And that pain, that isolation, it built me. It taught me how to carry weight without breaking. It taught me how to command my own respect. It taught me that no one is coming to give you a crown. You forge it with your bare hands. I've seen what happens when you bet on yourself with everything you got. I've seen the shift, the mental transformation from victim to victor, from doubt to dominance, from fear to fire. And that journey, it's available to anyone. But most won't, not because they can't, but because they won't get uncomfortable. They won't embrace the grind. They want success without sacrifice. They want growth without pain. But that's not how it works. You want a life worth living, you're gonna have to burn for it. But here's the beauty. Once you've gone through the fire, nothing scares you anymore. You become unshakable. You walk different. You speak different. You carry yourself like a man who knows who he is because you've earned it. You didn't steal it. You didn't fake it. You built it. You don't need a perfect plan. You don't need approval. You don't need the weight. You need to move. Start where you are, use what you have, become obsessed with the process. Because if you do it right, if you suffer with intention, if you embrace the pain instead of avoiding it, you'll wake up one day and realize you're unrecognizable. This is your story, and right now it's being written in real time. You decide how it ends. You don't realize how fast time disappears until it's already gone. One moment, you're young and full of dreams, blink, and 10 years evaporate into nothingness. Not because life is unfair, not because someone held you back, but because you kept saying, I'll start tomorrow, because you thought you had time. And one day you're gonna sit in silence and wonder where it all went, where your fire died, where your ambition was buried, where the life you imagined got replaced by one you settled for, and that moment will eat you alive. Not because you failed, but because deep down, you never even tried. You scroll past people doing what you dream of, not because they're better, not because they had more help, but because they had the guts to face discomfort while you avoided it. That pain, that's not something you outrun. It follows you, it haunts you, it creeps into every silent moment, every failed relationship, every dream deferred. You can lie to your friends. You can lie to your parents, you can lie to the world, but you can't lie to yourself. And that inner war, it destroys men more than failure ever could. People don't fear death. They fear reaching the end and realizing they were never alive, that they could have been great but chose comfort, that they had chances but played it safe, that their whole life was one long negotiation with fear, and fear won. What eats you isn't that you didn't become a millionaire or get the mansion or drive the Ferrari, that you had the talent, you had the time, but you chose Netflix over effort. You chose approval over authenticity. You chose habits that numbed you instead of ones that made you powerful. And here's what's even worse. You think you're waiting for the right time, but the clock doesn't stop ticking just because you're undecided. Every day you hesitate, someone else is getting ahead. While you scroll, someone is building. While you question yourself, someone else is cashing in on the very idea you've been too scared to chase. You think life gives you second chances? Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the door closes and never opens again. And you'll never know how far you could have gone because fear convinced you to stand still. Let that sink in. Not acting is a choice, and it's the most dangerous one of all. But there's another side to this. That side is what happens if you do act. If you stop waiting, stop doubting, stop living like a ghost in your own story. What happens if you take all that frustration, all that anxiety, all that wasted energy and channel into something real? The world doesn't care how you feel, it only responds to action. You can cry, complain, post quotes, talk about goals, but none of it means anything unless you move. Success isn't a mood, it's a lifestyle. It's not about waiting for everything to align, it's about forcing your life into alignment by doing what others won't. And the moment you realize that your power isn't in your circumstances, but in your choices, that's the moment everything changes.
Don't live a mediocre life. Don't settle for average. Don't wake up every day just to survive. You were not created to coast. You were not built to blend in. You were born to break through. But the truth is, most people never will. They'll live quiet lives of comfort and fear, wrapped in excuses, buried in distractions, hiding from the work, avoiding the mirror, and running from their potential. They'll wake up, go to work, come home, scroll, sleep, and repeat. For years, no fire, no fight, no purpose, just existence. That's not life. That's slow death. And if you're not careful, you'll get pulled into that same cycle. A routine of regret, a lifestyle of just enough, surrounded by people who don't dream, don't grow, don't believe. But I dare you to want more. I dare you to demand more from yourself. Stop acting like you've got forever. Stop living like your purpose can wait. You don't get another shot at this version of life. So what are you doing with it? Mediocrity is a choice. Greatness is a decision. And every second you waste is one you never get back. You think you're tired now? Try living a life where you never reach your potential. That's a pain you can't escape. That's a weight you carry every single day. You were meant to rise, but rising requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. It requires you to silence the noise, kill the excuses, and get uncomfortable. You can't live an extraordinary life with ordinary habits. You can't change the world while chasing comfort. You want the dream? Then do the work. You want the crown? Carry the cross. Mediocre people will call you crazy for wanting more, but let them talk. You don't need their approval. You need to stay locked in. Mediocrity loves company and it hates ambition. But you weren't built to be liked. You were built to lead, built to impact, built to rise. You've got something in you that the world needs, but it will never come out if you keep playing small. Stop playing to survive. Start living to conquer. Start moving like someone who knows their name carries power. You're not just here to exist. You're here to make noise. You're here to leave a mark, to leave a legacy. So wake up with intention, move with purpose, speak with power. Work like your life depends on it, because it does. Your time is your life, so spend it like it matters, because mediocre choices add up to a wasted life. But bold decisions, they shape destiny. Get out of the middle. Get off the fence. Stop standing in the crowd. Be the one they watch. Be the one they study. Be the one who said, "Enough is enough. I'm not living like this anymore." That's when everything changes. When you decide that mediocre is no longer an option, that you're done pretending, done delaying, done shrinking. You were created for more. Now go prove it. Don't just exist, dominate. Don't just survive, rise. Because the graveyard is full of people who waited, who played it safe, who never pushed, who never went all in. Don't be one of them. Be different, be dangerous, be legendary. But above all, don't you dare live a mediocre life.